How to do impasto painting? Let's explore in today's video. Impasto is a very popular technique among artists, and to name a few, Van Gogh, Rembrandt and even Monet has used it in their paintings. And as a beginner, you might have a lot of questions on what it is and how to implement the same. Let's explore and break it down in this video. Hi, this is Modula, the artist behind Modula Creations, and let's get started. What is impasto painting technique? Impasto is a technique where thick paint is used either with a brush or a palette or a painting knife. Using paint like this will make your brush strokes or knife strokes very much visible, and this is called as impasto. The knife can be a plastic or a metal knife. The only thing you need to remember is to use paint thicker, that's all. How you do it or with what you do it is all your own interest. So in this video, I am going to give you tips to make it more easy and understandable for you if you want to try your hands on impasto. The first thing is the paint consistency. Your paint has to be nice and thick in consistency. With most of the artist quality paint tubes that you get today, you can do impasto technique directly from the tube paints. If you want to get more thick textured impasto, you can use a heavy body acrylics, and in case you want a still more peaks to be visible, you can use a textured paste. Mix the textured paste with your acrylics and you are good to go. For this painting particularly, I haven't used any medium. I'm just using my artist quality tube paints. On the other hand, you cannot use a bottle paint like these for your impasto. This is mainly because the consistency of these paints are very watery and are not suitable for impasto technique. In simple terms, if I want to tell you, they cannot hold the peaks. So you will not get the thicker look. So obviously not suitable for impasto. The next thing is to decide between a palette or a painting knife versus a brush. Both knife and brush are the best options for creating impasto painting. You can make textures with both. For me personally, I feel knife is more easy to create those impasto look. If using a brush, you might have to use a bristle brush to create the impasto. Other synthetic soft brushes will not work. So in case of a brush, you have a little more nice and clean look to your painting. This implies that when you use a brush, the textures are more controllable because your brush itself is more controllable than a knife, right? But you can still make it look textured with a brush, no doubt about it. With a knife, because the knife is more stiff, it automatically creates the textures for you. It is little tricky to do the curves or the corners of an object with a knife, but if you do 2 to 3 paintings with a knife, you can easily get a hold of it. My suggestion for you is to try both and decide which you like better. What to do when you don't have a knife or a brush to do the impasto but you really wanted to try your hands on it? You can just go ahead to use a spatula, a butter knife or even a spoon. So to build these textures with the paint consistency is so important, and then you can use any object that is very much available to you at this moment and create these beautiful textures. If you are new to acrylics, download my free guide, Better Your Acrylics, from the link book.modulacreations.com, which has top 25 tips to improve your acrylic paintings, and it's completely free. The next thing is to design with your knife or your brush. Because the paint is very thick, you have the options to bring in great texture and 3D look into your painting. This is my most favorite part working with the impasto technique. So obviously you have two options here. You can either do it in a single stroke and leave it, or play with your brush or knife to create your textures. In this particular painting, if you see, I am creating simple lines using the side of my palette knife. Another thing is you also have different palette knives to create textures. Some have a curvy edges to create those textures, and some have a different type of the edge angle of the knife. So as you can see, you have lot of options, but as a beginner you don't need too many. For this painting here, I'm using just a single knife to do the entire painting as an impasto technique. So you really don't need too many items, just pick one knife and then start doing your impastos. The next thing is to layer with a touch. If you want to layer your colors, you can do it in impasto as well. But what you need to remember is, if you press the knife or the brush too much on an existing area, the colors will start to blend too much. So you might end up in muddy colors or in an area where your design or your textures are completely washed out. So for any layering, just lighten your pressure on the knife. You can also use a brush over your knife area. So either way it is fine. Just lift off the pressure and do it gently. There is a myth that you should not go over already made areas in impasto, but it's just a myth. It's not the case at all. You can just go over it and layer in impasto as well. The next is to keep your paint fresh. Since we are continuously working with multiple colors on our palette, sometimes the color goes muddy or mixes too much on the palette itself. So you might have to add fresh paint now and then to your palette. This will keep your colors bright and beautiful as ever. If you are watching me for the first time, I do post video tutorials like this one, product reviews and much more on my channel every single week. So do subscribe and also click on the bell icon so that you get notified whenever I post a new video. The next tip is to keep a cloth or tissue handy. When you are changing colors, you will have to wipe the knife on a cloth. You might not be able to wash it often and it will be very time consuming if you wash it for every change of color. So the best way is to keep a waste cloth or a tissue to wipe the paint off. On the other hand, if you are using a cloth, your cloth will be quickly full of paint. So if your hands are getting too dirty, wash your hands off in the middle of the session and keep using the cloth. The next tip is to keep experimenting with your marks. As impasto is very thick paint laid on the canvas or any surface, you can try making different marks to the surface of the painting. Since we are using acrylics here, don't think that it will dry very fast and you will not have enough time. As the paint is thicker, it takes time to dry. So you will have enough time to experiment with your textures. So experiment different strokes, different marks on your painting and see which is suitable for any area. And then you can leave it to dry. The next tip is to generously apply paint. Impasto demands lots and lots of paint. If you have been painting only with a brush with thin layers for all this time, or if you are trying impasto for the first time, don't be shocked by the amount of paint that you need to use. It takes a lot of paint to complete an impasto piece, but be generous with your paint application so that you can get great results for your painting. My additional tip is not to use any water. Impasto demands a thicker paint, so just using even a tiny amount of water dilutes your paint. So the consistency changes and you will not be able to get the peaks that you deserve and the textures will not fall in place. So never use water. In case you wanted to just clean your brush or your palette knife, only do it in the middle of the session using your cloth or your tissue and only wash everything in the end of the session. In case you wanted to try the same painting, I have given all the colors that I have used in this painting in the description box below. So please have a look at it. Here is the finished piece of work. The colors and the textures have come out really beautifully. As you can see, the impasto technique not only gives a 3D look, but it also gives a flow and energy to the painting. So that is why it is very popular among artists such as Van Gogh, Monet, Rembrandt. Everyone has used the impasto. So do try it out, and in case if you have any questions, do post it in the comment section below and I'll be happy to help you. If you got value from this video, do click on the like button and also let me know in the comments box below if you like impasto technique and if you want me to do more of these videos and analyze the textured mediums. We'll meet in the next video. Until then, bye from Madhula. Happy painting.